This is the story of Chuck, a dedicated employee of FedEx Courier Company, who is extremely serious about his work. He is so obsessed that every package reaches its destination on time. To fulfill this responsibility, he travels to the company's branches around the world, inspires the employees there, and explains the importance of time. Chuck's heart beats for Kelly, and Kelly loves him immensely too. They have been in a relationship for a long time and want to get married, but due to Chuck's busy life, their marriage has not been possible yet. Travels and workload prevent him from prioritizing the relationship. Christmas is approaching, but in the meantime, Chuck has to leave for Malaysia because a very important task related to the FedEx company is waiting for him there. However, he promises Kelly that no matter what happens, he will return on New Year's Eve. As he bids farewell, Chuck gives Kelly a Christmas gift, and in return, Kelly gives him a watch with her picture embedded in it. Chuck flies to Malaysia, but when his plane is flying over the Pacific Ocean, a severe storm hits. The plane crashes due to the storm. Since it is a private FedEx plane, only 4 people are on board, and the rest of the plane is filled with parcels and cargo. The plane falls into the sea, and only one person survives the horrific accident, Chuck. After the shocking accident, the sea waves carry Chuck to an unknown island. When he opens his eyes in the morning, he finds himself on a deserted island. Looking around, he sees only vast trees, mountains, and the endless sea, but no sign of any human. He calls out loudly for help, but there is no response. To spark a ray of hope, he writes "help" in large letters on the sand, hoping that if a plane flies overhead, it will see the sign of his presence. But the night passes and exhausted, Chuck falls asleep there. In the morning, when he wakes up, he sees that the waves have erased his written help. Chuck writes "help" with large pieces of wood, believing that people will surely come looking for him. When they reach here, they will understand from this sign that Chuck is at this location and desperately needs help. Meanwhile, some FedEx company packages also wash ashore with the sea waves, but unfortunately, none of them contain any edible items. During this time, Chuck hears strange noises several times. He looks around cautiously, but sees no one. Suddenly, a coconut falls from a height, and Chuck realizes that this was the cause of the noise. Now he understands that the only way to quench his thirst is coconut water, as drinking the salty seawater is not possible. He quickly gathers several raw coconuts. However, breaking the coconut and removing its hard shell is not easy. Chuck has to struggle hard to open it. After much effort, he manages to get a coconut, but making a hole in it and drinking the water becomes another challenge for him. However, after many failed attempts, he finally learns the art of making a hole in the coconut and drinking from it. Now Chuck has found a solution to the water problem, but in the 2 or 3 days spent on the island, his troubles have increased. He has no shoes, and when he walks in the seawater, the sharp stones there cause deep wounds in his feet. The pain becomes unbearable, and blood starts oozing from the wounds. In this situation, he cuts his pants in half and wraps them around his feet for some protection. During this time, he notices a high peak on the island. He decides to climb this peak to look around and find out where he really is, and if there is any way to escape. After reaching the peak with great difficulty, he sees something strange in the sea. With curiosity and hope, he hurriedly descends and reaches the object. But what he sees there shakes him to the core. It is the lifeless body of one of the pilots from the same plane that crashed and brought him to this island. Seeing this, Chuck is deeply broken. But accepting the situation, he buries the pilot's body with full respect. Before burying, he keeps the pilot's shoes and a torch with him, as these 2 things could prove useful on this island. As time passes, Chuck gradually learns the ways of living on this island. He also understands how to collect dew accumulated on leaves overnight and store it in a coconut. One night, Chuck sees a ship in the middle of the sea. His heart fills with joy at the sight, and he starts shouting loudly in happiness. But it is impossible for his voice to reach that far. He quickly brings his torch and tries to signal the ship, but the distance is so great that the faint light of the torch does not reach there. The next morning, he decides that he will leave the island through the same airport he arrived at. Now he was convinced that there was no one on this deserted island and no one was going to come here. When he tries to depart from the airport, giant waves block his path. The waves repeatedly prevent him from going into the sea and push him back to the shore. During the struggle, his foot gets injured, and blood starts flowing from the wound, forcing Chuck to return to the shore. That night, heavy rain starts, and to escape the rain, he takes shelter in a cave. To dispel the darkness, he lights his torch and falls asleep in its light. But when he wakes up the next morning, the torch batteries are dead. Now he has no means of light, and he has no knowledge of how to start a fire. Chuck now goes to the FedEx boxes that washed ashore and starts opening them one by one. He finds many items, but only a few seem useful. He finds skating shoes, from which he removes the blades. Now he has a sharp object like a knife, with which he can easily cut coconuts and sharpen sticks. He makes numerous attempts to start a fire, during which his hands get scraped. When all his attempts fail, he shouts loudly in frustration. Then, while peeling a coconut, an idea strikes him. If 2 sticks are rubbed together quickly, perhaps fire can be generated. Previously, the way he was trying to start a fire had badly injured his hands. Now he adopts a new method, and after much effort, he finally succeeds in starting a fire. For the first time, he experiences true happiness on this deserted island. Meanwhile, he finds a football among the items, which has his blood on it. He draws eyes, a nose, and a mouth on it and starts talking to it. The football has Wilson written on it, and he names it Wilson, considering it his friend. Now, Chuck had a companion on this island, a football, which had become his closest friend. However, in this solitary life, the thing that troubled him the most was the unbearable pain in his tooth. This pain had been there for a long time, but he always avoided going to the doctor. Now, with no medical facility available, he had to extract his tooth himself. Enduring extreme pain, he somehow manages to break his tooth and falls unconscious due to the unbearable agony. Gradually, time moved forward at its own pace, and today Chuck had been living on this island for a full 4 years. In these years, Chuck's entire appearance had completely changed. Once a sturdy and hefty Chuck had become lean and thin. His long disheveled beard and grown hair were witnesses to his harsh lifestyle. In these 4 years, Chuck had embraced the life of this island. Continuous effort and fully blending into the island's environment had made Chuck an integral part of life here. Meanwhile, the friendship between Wilson and Chuck had deepened. Chuck shared everything with Wilson, talked to him all day, and tried to fill his loneliness with his company. One morning, Chuck suddenly hears a sound. He immediately runs outside and sees a steel sheet. As soon as he sees it, an idea strikes him. Could this sheet help him in his attempt to leave the island? In fact, the biggest reason Chuck was stranded on this island was the high waves of the sea. Whenever he tried to go into the sea, the waves pushed him back to the shore. This was why he had not been able to leave the island for so many years. But now he had decided that he would leave the island somehow. He cut down large coconut trees and gathered them on the shore to build a strong boat. However, building a boat was not easy, and he faced many difficulties in the process. Chuck planned that when the wind changed direction, he would attempt to leave the island. He was going to use the steel sheet he found as a sail, so the force of the wind could push his boat forward. Just like sailors in ancient times used sails to propel their boats, Chuck prepared his boat using the same technique. Finally, the moment arrived when the wind changed direction. Chuck placed his dearest companion Wilson on the boat and set off, leaving the deserted island behind. Battling the massive waves, he moved forward. Soon, the island disappeared from his sight, but the endless sea still lay ahead of him. He didn't know when he would find land or when a ship would appear, but there was hope, the hope that he would reach his home, his world. However, the sea journey was not easy. Chuck faced rain, storms, and many difficult situations, but he was not one to give up. He had already prepared coconut shells to collect water, so whenever it rained, he could fill them and use them when needed. But during this time, an incident occurred that broke Chuck from within. His beloved companion Wilson, who was a football, fell into the sea. As soon as Chuck realized this, Wilson had drifted quite far. A panicked Chuck immediately jumped into the water and tried with all his might to save him, but unfortunately, he failed. When he returned to his boat, he broke down and cried. It might sound strange that Chuck was so devastated by the loss of just a football, but Wilson was not just a football. He was Chuck's closest friend. For the past 4 years, Chuck talked to him, shared his sorrows, and considered him a living companion. This was why losing Wilson was like losing a loved one for him. In that loneliness, Wilson was the support that gave him strength. And now, with him gone, Chuck was completely alone. Chuck continues his journey. After many days of arduous travel, when he is completely exhausted, both physically and mentally, a large cargo ship passes by. The people on the ship see him and rescue him. Finally, Chuck returns to his home, his familiar world. But upon his return, he realizes that everything has changed. The people who were once his own, family, friends, had accepted that Chuck was no longer in this world. They had even held his funeral. The deepest blow comes when he learns that his beloved Kelly, whom he loved immensely and who loved him just as much, is now someone else's wife. She is married and now a mother to a lovely daughter. Chuck gathers the courage to meet Kelly. Kelly becomes emotional upon seeing him, embraces him with joy and astonishment. But things are not the same as before. Kelly now has a family and she cannot go with Chuck. They both decide that their paths are now separate. Chuck remembers the watch Kelly gave him, which remained a part of his memories on the deserted island. He returns the watch to Kelly, as it is a family heirloom. He says, family heirlooms should stay with the family. But he keeps a picture of Kelly with him, which is the only token of his emotions left. As he leaves, Kelly looks at him and says, "You promised you would return." Pain reflects in Chuck's eyes, and he softly says, "I am so sorry." Kelly's eyes also fill with tears, and then, as the emotions of the past surge in a moment, Kelly embraces Chuck before bidding farewell. She still loves him just as much, but leaving her family is not possible, and Chuck doesn't want Kelly to be away from her family. Kelly also has Chuck's old car, which holds many memories. She returns the car to him. Chuck drives away in it, but as he moves a little further, Kelly watches him leave. A strange ache arises in her heart. She feels like something is being left behind, something remains incomplete. Suddenly, she calls out Chuck's name and runs after his car. Chuck immediately stops the car and embraces Kelly. Tears well up in Kelly's eyes. She says, "I knew you were alive, you would come back. But everyone said I should let go of this hope. I still love you just as much because you are my first and true love." Tears fill Chuck's eyes too. He says in a voice filled with emotion, "I love you very much too." After this, Chuck seats her in his car, and it seems like they will now set off somewhere far towards their new world. Chuck makes a decision. He looks at Kelly and says in a soft voice, "Kelly, you should go back to your home." Kelly looks at him, her eyes a mix of love, pain, and understanding. And ultimately, Chuck drops her off at her home. After this, we see Chuck sitting with his dear friend. broken inside, sharing his pain. He says, maybe I would have perished on that deserted island or found a way to end myself. To be honest, I even thought about suicide. I made a rope, tied it tightly, and tried to end myself, but I couldn't do it. He takes a deep breath and continues, I had to return to Kelly. I had to stay alive because my heart beat for her. I just chose to keep breathing, thinking somehow I would survive. I could have fallen ill. Things could have gotten worse, but the thought of Kelly kept me going. But fate was cruel. Today, when I have returned, I have lost Kelly forever, he says, tears welling up in his eyes, pain evident in his voice. Although the film did not emphasize Chuck and Kelly's love much, it was clear that there was a deep, soulful connection between them, a bond that was forced to break due to circumstances. The passage of time and circumstances forced Kelly to move on to a new life, and now she belonged to someone else. Meanwhile, Chuck was left alone, an unfulfilled promise and a new direction in life. Chuck still had a package, the one he had saved from the deserted island. When his ship sank, many packages washed ashore with the waves, but one special package, with angel wings drawn on it, Chuck never opened. It was his last remaining possession, and he had vowed that if he ever returned home, he would deliver it to its rightful place. His honesty and dedication to his responsibility had given him the strength to fight every hardship. Perhaps this was why he kept himself alive, and now, when he had returned, he decided to fulfill his promise. When Chuck reached the house where the package was to be delivered, he knocked on the door, but there was no response. Ultimately, he left the package at the door with a note. This package saved my life. Thank you, Chuck Noland. After this comes the most emotional scene of the film. Chuck stands at a crossroads, looking in all four directions. He is engulfed in uncertainty. Where to go now? What to do? He is looking at a map when suddenly a young woman approaches him with a slight smile and says, maybe you're lost. Chuck responds with a light laugh, maybe yes. The woman points in all four directions, explaining where each road leads. Then she heads towards her truck. But as Chuck looks at her vehicle, a slight sparkle appears in his eyes, because the truck has the same angel wings drawn on it that were on the package. Chuck quietly watches her leave. She was heading in the same direction from which he had just delivered the package. This woman was actually the owner of the house for which Chuck had left the package. When the film begins, the same house is shown with a message, but 4 years later, when Chuck arrives there, the name of this woman's lover is also erased. It was a sign that this woman had also lost someone dear in her life, just as Chuck had lost Kelly. Now they were both alone, at a point in life where every path was new. Chuck looks at all four directions for a while, then glances in the direction where the woman went. A glimmer of hope appears in his eyes. A slight smile emerges on his lips, and the film ends here, with an incomplete love story and the beginning of a new life.